Today, let's talk about feelings. Not what to do with them, not how to manage them, just what it's like to be with them. Because for many of us, emotions don't feel neutral, they feel risky. When something strong shows up, whether it's sadness or fear or anger or even excitement, the body often reacts before the mind has a chance to think. There's a tightening, a bracing, an impulse to make it stop. Not because we've done anything wrong, but because we've learned somewhere along the way that strong feelings weren't safe to stay with. So we move quickly. We distract. We override. We reframe. We tell ourselves it's not a big deal. We try to feel better. And all of that makes sense. If emotions once felt overwhelming or unwelcome or disruptive, of course we'd want them gone. Of course we'd learn to control them, or at least appear to. What I've been noticing, though, is that emotions themselves aren't actually asking for control. They don't arrive with instructions. They don't demand action. They don't require understanding. They arrive, and then they move. What often feels unsafe isn't the emotion itself. It's the moment we believe that we have to leave ourselves in order to survive it. And that belief changes everything. Because now the emotion isn't just present, it's dangerous. And once something feels dangerous, the system does what it knows how to do. It tries to end it. Many of us were taught, explicitly or quietly, that emotional control equals maturity. Don't cry. Calm down. Be strong. Stay positive. And we took those messages seriously. We learned to override sadness, to suppress anger, to minimize fear, to perform okayness. Not because we're dishonest, but because we're trying to stay safe and connected. And that strategy works until it doesn't. Because the cost of overriding our emotions is subtle but real. When we constantly move past what we feel, we stop trusting our own experience. We start relating to ourselves as something to manage. There's a common idea that emotions need to be controlled. But control assumes there's something wrong with their presence. And I'm not sure that's true. Emotions arise on their own. They change on their own. And they leave on their own. They're more like weather than commands. They don't need obedience. They don't need suppression. They need space. And space only becomes possible when we stop fighting. When I hear people talk about being at war with life, I often hear something more specific underneath. A war with sadness. A war with fear. A war with anger. A war with disappointment. Life isn't actually the enemy. Feeling is. Or rather, having to feel is what feels intolerable. So we tighten. We try to think our way out. We tell ourselves we shouldn't feel this way. We rush toward a better version of now. And the war continues. What I've been discovering, slowly, is that staying changes things. Not dramatically and not immediately, but staying changes the relationship. Staying doesn't mean indulging the emotion. It doesn't mean expressing it. It doesn't mean understanding it. Staying simply means not leaving, not abandoning yourself the moment something uncomfortable shows up. That's it. And that's more radical than it sounds. There's often a fear that if we stay with an emotion, it will take over. It will get bigger. It will last forever. That we'll drown in it. But what I've noticed is almost the opposite. When we don't rush away, when we don't argue, when we don't try to fix or override, something softens. The emotion moves because emotions move. The urgency eases because there's nothing chasing anything. And the body learns something important. This is survivable. Safety doesn't come from feeling good. Safety comes from discovering that you can stay with yourself even when you don't feel good. That's a different kind of common sense. There's another habit worth noticing here. When an emotion shows up, we often feel pressure to do something with it. Figure it out, process it, use it, translate it into action. But listening doesn't require doing. Listening doesn't require productivity. Sometimes strong emotions naturally slow us down. They interrupt momentum. They pause the forward rush. Not because something needs fixing, but because something is asking to be felt. Not acted on, not solved, felt. Listening doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't mean indulgence. And it doesn't mean that you'll act differently afterward. It just means you're willing to stay long enough to hear what's already here. And even that doesn't need to happen right away. Just knowing that listening is possible without pressure changes the field. There's a quiet relief in realizing that emotions don't have to be managed to be trustworthy. They don't need to be correct. They don't need to make sense. They're part of being alive. And when we stop treating them like problems, something else becomes possible. Not clarity, not answers, but presence. Staying doesn't mean you'll never move again. It means movement comes from honesty, not escape. It means action, if anything happens at all, comes from listening, not pressure. Today, it's just about noticing that you don't have to leave yourself the moment you feel something. That you can stay a little longer than usual. That nothing bad happens when you do. That safety doesn't come from control, it comes from relationship. A relationship with yourself that doesn't require you to be different first. So, when you notice yourself wanting to rush past an emotion, you don't need to stop. Just notice the impulse. Notice how fast it is. Notice what it assumes would happen if you stayed. And let that noticing be enough.